Yeah, can we have first Rana Kapoor, then Rajan Mittal, and after Saurabh?
Arunji and Surajji, sir, you were a very powerful combination. Everybody believed in your dream, Shining India. When you come back, what are going to be the most important 5 points in your economic and political manifesto to really create this resurgence of India?
You see, there is no election today. I said I really have to declare a manifesto. But I'll give you what my worries are. And therefore you will be able to gauge from this. I think from our post-1991 experiment has broadly been a positive experiment. And when you speak in terms of issues, there's been almost in the roadmap one national consensus amongst the major parties. You expedite the growth process. You follow a particular pattern of decision making. You use the increased enrichment of the system besides allowing the benefits to percolate down, because they alone will not eradicate poverty, and you use it for effectively poverty alleviation schemes. That's the process slowly but surely you've followed in the last 20 years now. Last 1 or 2 years, the worries have set in. And the worries are, now whenever we spoke in terms of India being a glorious destination for investment, I think now some of you have also started having doubts. Therefore, initially when our company started buying investments and started making investments outside India, we thought our corporates had become big. But today, at least I smell an analysis that many of them are feeling that perhaps we are no longer the best place to do business in. And there are factors which are contributing to it. And most of those factors are really the makings of an Indian politics. They are not the makings of an Indian industry. You've almost stopped acting on the very thought process of the second generation, the next generation of reforms that you require. I think this year in the budget, Pranab Mukherjee gave some indication that he wants to take some steps. In between, you had almost abandoned it. Your infrastructure creation has slowed down. Your poverty alleviation schemes should be there, but not merely become a political expenditure, must also indulge in asset creation. You've run out of ideas how to do that. The only methodology you now know how to curb inflation is to hike the interest rates and make the economy more sluggish. And that doesn't seem to be working. Corruption is acting as a disincentive. Now, I can give 5 other reasons. I mentioned a detailed set of reasons in one of my speeches in Parliament. I think there is a broad, as I said, a national consensus. Nobody wants to reverse what happened, started from 91. You expedite that process. You use the enriched state for infrastructure, for poverty alleviation. But then if there is a certain kind of paralysis which sets in into governance, and then you can suddenly see things falling apart. Senior ministers become suspicious of each other. Aspirations of individuals start crossing swords with each other. You fail in your act of building a national consensus with the opposition. You get too embroiled in your internal controversies. And I think then you run out, you develop a complex, almost a she's mentality. Now, all this acts as a disincentive. And I think this trend, which is just about begun to appear has to be reversed. And therefore, the confidence in the whole nation and in the international community that we are still the face. If you find some kind of an investment environment drying up in this country, then it's going to be a huge setback. And therefore, in terms of governance, in terms of policy domain, I don't think we are in an era where there are great ideological differences today. What you require today is that this entire drift which has set in, to get the country out of this drift and put it back on the track.
When there is other government or vice versa. How do we really break this? You have to tell us that the accountability of manifesto should happen. Other is, whichever party may come in power, can there be three things that we can agree upon, which is education, healthcare, and infrastructure for this country? As a nation, we owe it to, you could be in any political party. I think these are three fundamental things which India will need. A country of this size, if we do not give them education and employability and basic healthcare and sanitation in villages, you go across the country, you know better. So if consensus can be built around 3 or 4 things, leave alone anything else, I think it's in for countries' need as we.
You see, let's not overstate this. Because how many legislations which deal with these 3 subjects that you've mentioned, or how many steps the government has taken, have seriously been knocked out or prevented? Most of the steps are taken, are almost approved, almost with a unanimity, if not near unanimity. And therefore, we need not dig in the point that please show your commitment to education or infrastructure. Obviously, anybody would have it, but the bat is in the hand of the government. You and I can't go and pad up and start batting. Therefore, the initiative has to come from them. After all, they have the mandate to rule. We only have a mandate to keep a check on them and support them when the right thing comes. Now, can you cite one illustration where infrastructure or education or healthcare proposals have come up? On the contrary, we come up and say, please don't impose service tax on healthcare. We keep a little amount of check on them. That's all. The initiative has to come from the government.
Yeah, Mr. Jaitley, I suspect everyone in this room supports the statement you made about the country's best interest being served by having a strong 2-party system, or maybe 2 coalitions. And I suspect that perhaps some of the non-performance on the part of the current government, or even the hubris that has set in and prevents them or stops them from reaching out to the opposition, stems from the fact that they feel that the BJP today is not a strong enough opposition, or is not a strong enough party, or doesn't pose a threat. And in many ways it's a pity, because I think regardless of who would vote or not vote for the BJP or Congress, I think everyone here would love to see a very strong opposition. One of the things that worries us, or certainly many of the people that I speak to, is many of the USPs that people saw in the BJP coalition government appear to be not USPs that the BJP itself believes in. Because if you look at a lot of the discussions today or parliament or supporting of ideas or causes, they seem to stem not so much from what the BJP should do and would have done if it was in government, but more in terms of just opposing the party in power. And a part of it is what you were doing when you were in government in terms of positions, in terms of support. Then perhaps you would emerge as a much, much stronger party. And that's something that everybody would want.
Well, it's always very difficult to answer non-specific theoretical questions. Let me tell you, this whole idea of being strong or weak, really these are all phases in politics. There's never a last day in its calendar. Therefore, how you perform in parliament, how your state governments perform, how you perform, what are the kind of new ideas you are coming out with to deal with issues. I at least have a sense of satisfaction. I can't say all, that most of our state governments have done reasonably well. In fact, some of them have done extraordinarily well. In terms of our political base, we are expanding. Our parliamentary performances are somewhat reasonable. But at the same time, we are also passing through a challenging state where a generational change in our leadership is taking place. And when generational changes do take place, I always consider it a positive development in any democracy, where you have a galaxy of leadership. Indian minds have been so obsessed. After all, the Labour Party, when it lost, it had a choice to make out of half a dozen people. So they have a process to go through. They'll experiment one, they'll experiment the second, and then come out with who the eventual leader would be. But in India, there's a mindset which has developed that unless you can identify somebody from a surname, you are not a leader. I think it's, in the long-term polity, this structure has to change. And therefore, when you speak in terms of weakness or strength, I see this as a phase in my party's own history, where an evolution of a leadership is taking place, and if we are able to develop a galaxy of leaders in a particular generation and then think in terms of the next generation thereafter, I would at least have somewhat a sense of satisfaction.
Thank you very much. We'll have to close this session. Sorry, but we are getting late for the lunch, and then after that we have another set of meetings in the afternoon.